Over the years, I have become marginally better at using my fabric more efficiently and discarding any of the tiny scraps that are objectively useless for any practical purpose. But alas, I still have bins and bags and stacks of fabric scraps that I just can't bear to part with, because I want to convince myself that I am not a wasteful person and that I am resourceful and I will find a use for these remnants of my creative exploits. So in an effort to prove that to myself and to the internet, I'm going to make something with my fabric scraps this week. I'm going to make some art, or at least try to. So my plan is to use my fabric scraps to create a large collage slash tapestry slash quilt inspired piece of art with pops of color, something that, is going to be impactful and fill up this wall behind the couch and replace these two art prints that I just kind of haphazardly put into poster frames back here. So I know that art is very subjective, and some people are probably going to be like, oh, I hate abstract art. I love abstract art. It's one of my favorite types of art. I feel like it looks like it would be really easy, but every time I've tried to do it myself, it's a struggle. So I could be making life a little harder for myself right now by doing a piece of abstract art out of fabric scraps, no less. But I would really like to try it. So now I just need to start going through my scraps. I'll be honest, I'm a little overwhelmed to pull out those scrap bins and start sifting through all of that. But maybe I'll start getting some inspiration once I start pulling some of those scraps out. I'm gonna have more of the kind of neutrals that are gonna basically be kind of the background of this composition. Once I get those collaged together, I'll start adding in some of these darker colors to create the contrast and a little bit of, play with the composition. So I need to iron these pieces and just start kind of cutting them down to more manageable pieces. And when I cut these, I'm actually gonna cut, like if they have a seam, I'm gonna include the seam. I'm just gonna include all of the stitching and everything that's already on these pieces of scraps and make that a part of the composition as well. Once I had all of my scraps prepped, I started laying out all of the neutral pieces to create the background of my composition. I'm just trying to keep everything balanced here, so I'm making sure to spread out the different textures and the different tones so that I don't have too many pieces kind of grouped together that are too similar. Once I had a layout that was pretty close to what I wanted, I started pinning my pieces together, overlapping them at the edges. I decided to use an orange thread for a little extra pop of color and contrast, and I'll be top stitching everything together with a zigzag stitch. Connecting the pieces in this way allows me to move a little bit more quickly and is going to add a little bit more character and texture to the composition. I'm not going to have to do any pressing of seams or anything like that. It's just going to be a very, very rough patchwork quilt. I started out just working in smaller sections like this. Once I had several smaller sections assembled, I just connected those pieces together using the same technique of overlapping and top stitching. I found this to be a little bit easier to work with. It also kind of helped me sort of manage the direction of the composition a little bit better. It felt like it made the project go a little bit quicker. This process actually ended up being very meditative because I didn't have to think about it too much. I could just kind of slap everything together. I did have a little bit of discretion when I was putting the pieces together, but I really loved how all the different textures worked together. And my finished background piece was roughly 4 foot by 5 foot. And when I finished this, it ended up being closer to 4 foot by 4 foot. I'd like to take a moment to thank the sponsor of today's video, FlexiSpot. FlexiSpot sent me their Pro Plus E7 standing height desk a while back. It is a really nice heavy duty table. I got the bamboo top. It is, I think, 55 inches by 28 inches wide. It's perfect for my sewing table. It also has a USB port and a little control pad on the front of the desk, so you can charge your phone or charge anything else that uses a USB cord. It's also very quiet when you're adjusting it, which is also nice. And I added wheels to mine so that I can roll it around my studio, and I can just roll it up to my cutting table, raise the height, and then I have essentially doubled my cutting surface. And I did this recently to make a bias cut slip dress, and having this enormous cutting surface for laying out all of my fabric was so convenient and made me love this table even more. FlexiSpot also recently sent me their C7 ergonomic chair, and I was traveling home to visit my family in Mississippi when they sent it, so I took it over to my mom's office to assemble it and try it out. The assembly was pretty easy. I do recommend having a buddy to help you put it together. but it came together pretty quickly, and it is a fantastic chair, very comfortable, fully adjustable, easy to spin in, and a lot of fun to sit in. My mom had to give it a spin too. And as you can see, we had a lot of fun playing with this chair in her office. It also reclines, which is so nice. And when you have this thing reclining, it is extremely comfortable. Definitely has some office nap time potential. And it's just nice to give your back and your neck and your shoulders a little break from leaning over a keyboard or a sewing machine all day. Love this chair. The FlexiSpot Black Friday sale is starting right now, and you can use my code FlexiSpot30 for an extra $30 off the E7, E7 Pro standing desk, and C7 ergonomic chair. I've added a link in the description to FlexiSpot's website where you can find all of these products. They're really fantastic products. I've been very happy working with FlexiSpot, and a big thank you again to FlexiSpot for sponsoring my video today and supporting this channel. Okay, back to it. Now I can start the process of essentially painting my canvas with my colored pieces of fabric. I wanted to lay this out in my living room where I had a little bit of space to fully lay it out and stand over it and see the composition from somewhat of a bird's eye view. Because if I had it on my table, it would be harder to kind of get an overall view of what the composition was looking like. I spent some time just kind of playing with my fabric scraps, putting things down, trying them in different configurations, comparing it to my inspiration photos and seeing, what I liked. And this was a little bit of an intuitive process, a little bit of kind of just trusting my gut. Once I got everything laid out, I also went back and took away some pieces. I really kind of futzed around with this for a while to get it to a composition that I was happy with. Once I had everything positioned where I thought I wanted it, I started pinning all of the pieces in place. Then it was back to the sewing machine to start top stitching everything in place the same way I did to create the background. I did find that as I was trying to maneuver this under the sewing machine, that my pins were kind of starting to work their way out. So I decided to baste these pieces onto this quilt with some safety pins instead. With all of the pieces stitched in place, I just needed to trim a few strings, and then I could move on to the frame for this piece of art. To make the frame, I just purchased some 1x2s at the hardware store and cut the corners mitered with this miter box. And please do not judge me. Every time I watch this footage, I get cracked up because this table is not meant to be sawing things on, and it moved all over the place. But I got the job done, and I don't have a wood shop, you guys. I'm just doing the best I can with what I got. I'll be making a frame that's about 4 foot by 4 foot for this piece of art. Once I had those pieces cut at a 45-degree angle, I could connect them at the corners with a little bit of wood glue. And I used my stapler to staple the corners together. These staples are not really, structural at all. They're just going to hold everything together until that glue dries because the wood glue is extremely strong. So the stapler is just there to kind of keep everything in place while it dries. Once I had the ends connected, I kind of put it down and just shook it a little bit. It was still a little bit wobbly, so I added some little supports at the corners here, just like little braces at each of the corners. To attach the artwork to the frame, I just laid my canvas on the floor face down, laid the frame on top, and then stretched and stapled the fabric to the back side of the frame all the way around, making sure to get it nice and taut. For the finishing touch, I wanted to add a frame around the edges of this canvas. I just got some lattice pieces from the hardware store and used wood glue to attach them to the sides. And I used wood glue very liberally because my thinking is that the wood glue will soak through the fabric and attach to the frame and also secure the fabric to the canvas frame and also to this outer frame. I clamped all of the edges, and I was kind of limited on clamps, so I also used some painter's tape to just kind of hold it together again until this wood glue dries, because once the glue dries, it's actually pretty strong. Then I removed all of the clamps and all of the tape And I have to say that this frame was very well secured to the canvas. It worked out really well using the wood glue like this. I also went back and kind of cleaned up some of the areas where I had stapled the fabric to the back just to make sure that it laid flat against the wall once I have it hung. And then I used some masking tape to kind of tape down some of those raw edges and just kind of clean up the back of the frame, cover some of the staples, make sure that there, wasn't anything sticking out or something that was going to scratch the wall. I'm not worried about the fabric slipping out because I tugged on it. It is very well secured by the wood glue. I mean, it's pretty much cemented in between the two frames of this piece. And now it is time to hang my new piece of abstract art on my wall. I had my other pieces of art attached with command strips, so I just pulled those off. And where the frames were laying against the wall, there was kind of a little bit of a mark. I don't know if it was like moisture and dust that had kind of accumulated there, but I just used a magic eraser to kind of scrub those little spots and placed my art in its new home. I really love how this turned out. As I was putting this thing together, I had several moments of, okay, where is this going? Is this going to look okay? Am I gonna like this when I'm finished? And I just kind of leaned into the process and kept going with it. I had planned to post this video like last week, actually, like a week ago, because I didn't just want to make a video here for YouTube. I actually wanted to create something that I knew I would enjoy in this space. With each of the steps, as I was kind of developing the composition for this, I would kind of sit with the art before I would sew everything down to make sure that I really liked where it was going. Even still, I felt like there was a little bit of trial and error. And until I got it on the wall, it was really hard to know for sure if I was gonna love it or hate it. One of the nice things about a project like this is that I have all of these little scraps of fabric and they're so pretty, and even though they're little tiny pieces that I can't really use for anything practical, I still really like them, and it's so nice to be able to still enjoy them in a piece of artwork that I sit next to almost every single day. Now, this is a project that I feel that you could do with a lot of different types of materials. I was talking to my mom after I made this. I sent a picture of this to my mom, and she was like, oh, I have all of these things that I could do something similar with, like paint chips. I think she said she also had like Formica countertop samples, other found objects, left over from other projects. Something like this is actually a really good use for that, and it allows you to kind of free your mind a little bit and kind of play with composition. When I was putting this together, I really was not too concerned with keeping things uniform or even keeping things neat. All of the edges are really frayed. Some of the stitches kind of skipped on my sewing machine because I was sewing different types of fabric together, and I just try to have fun with the process. So let me know what you think about this project. Are you into abstract art? Is it your thing? Or are you kind of like, no, abstract art is not my thing? Is this something that you would like to try yourself? Do you have other things that you like to do with your scraps? Let us know down in the comments below. And if you're looking for other scrap busting ideas, I do have a video here on my channel for making these really cute little rope bowls. And I took some fabric scraps and kind of wrapped them around to add a little bit of color to those. I'll put a link to that in the description below this video. I also made this ottoman that I'm sitting on right now. I made this a few years ago and made a cushion for the top of it and stuffed it with fabric scraps. So that has held up really well. Very happy with that, although I do need to recover this ottoman. Anyway, if you enjoyed today's video and you'd like to see more from me, please be sure to subscribe and hit the little bell icon. That way you'll be notified when I release new videos in the future. You can also further support this channel and the work that I do here by becoming a Patreon supporter. I'll put a link down in the description to that as well. I think that is all I have for you today. I will see you in the next video. Bye. Huxley is extremely confused about what I'm doing sitting in my closet right now. It's okay, bud. Mommy's okay.